All right, welcome aboard, guys. Time for the weekly Mac Forum video chat. I hope that you enjoy this week's show. This is the May the 3rd edition. I hope, I can't believe we're in May already. Um, it should be interesting, maybe a little shorter than usual. Been a sort of hectic week, kind of short list of things to talk about here, but I think you'll find some things interesting and some things that are perhaps useful information. As usual, we'll have a tip or two, a little bit of a forum roundup there for those of you that do not get to visit the forum very often. And as usual, let's begin tonight with the forum roundup. To begin with, we had, if I did my math correctly, on the trusty Apple calculator there, a total of 99 new members this week. Right before the show, a few minutes before the show, the newest of them was Prisoner. Welcome aboard. Hope that you enjoy your time at Mac Forum, and I hope that you find some interesting information in all of the wealth of threads that are out there and variety of user experiences. You should find a lot of very useful information and some very helpful forum participants. A couple of things to mention to you. We're still seeing on the forum a little bit here and there, a little bit about people wanting to downgrade from Yosemite. Generally speaking, it involves going back to 10.6.8 to Snow Leopard, the last release of Snow Leopard. I'm going to mention, again, just because it keeps coming up, that if you want to do that, there's two things you have to keep in mind. One, you may have to do a completely clean install, because as a general rule, when the OS 10 installer, let's say that you run the installer off the OS 10 DVD, off the Snow Leopard DVD, and you don't erase the drive. When you try to apply to that drive, it's going to tell you, hey, you can't do that. You've got a newer version of the operating system on the drive. So you're going to have to completely remove the new operating system, i.e. Yosemite, Maverick, whatever it is, and go back to the one you want. Now, here's the problem. When you do that, okay, when you do a clean install, you absolutely need to make sure that you have a backup of your data. And I'll tell you, one of the other problems that you're going to encounter, or you're likely to encounter rather, when you do a downgrade, is this. Let's assume that you had an application that was running under, let's just take Snow Leopard for example. An application was running under Snow Leopard. You upgraded to a new operating system. Let's just, for the sake of argument, say Mountain Lion. It could just as well be any of them. And you update that application. If you decide to go back to Snow Leopard, the new updated version of the application may or may not run on Snow Leopard. It just depends on the requirements of that update. So an update going backwards like that is, although I won't say don't do it, because sometimes people have pretty good reasons, I will say you need to think carefully about what that's going to do to your workflow in terms of, do you already have some apps installed that won't run under Snow Leopard? Apps that you need? Things like that. Those are the kinds of issues. It's been posited on the forum, and my apologies at the moment, I can't remember who first suggested this, because this literally just occurred to me as I was explaining this to you, that one of the downsides of Apple's current distribution policy for the operating system updates, and specifically with major upgrades, say going from 10.7 to 10.8, 10.8 to 10.9, 10.9 to 10.10, when those updates were costly, i.e., those of you that remember back in the Leopard days, it frequently costs upwards of $120 US to do to buy the upgrade. People seem to think a little carefully and wait a little while before they made the decision to upgrade. Now with the upgrades being predominantly free, Snow Leopard was, I believe, $20 US. There was one other one that was about 20, but the last couple had been free. The problem is that some people are taking the jump to the new operating system without seriously considering whether their machine can handle it or whether their existing applications will be compatible. And just as an example, if you go from 10.6.8, the last release, official release of Snow Leopard, to 10.10.3, which is the current stable release of the OS, current public release, you lose the ability to run PowerPC applications. Rosetta no longer installs once you get past Snow Leopard. Now, for some people, that's not a big issue. But if you've got some older software and running the PowerPC versions of that software, and you haven't updated to Intel version, that may or may not be a significant expense, depending upon how important that software is to you and what the costs of upgrades are. So do take that into consideration. If you need some help for that in deciding that, make an appropriate thread on the forum. I suggest you do a forum search first, as we have a number of threads about both downgrading and upgraded to Yosemite. It's not that it's a bad system. It's been remarkably stable for me and for many others. But I went into it knowing what software I was going to lose. I've posted a link in previous shows to the Roaring Apps database that gives you an indication of which versions of certain software run under the new OS and which ones don't. That's a very helpful site to take a look at. And of course, as I say, we've had a number of threads going, so I encourage you to search the forum. And if you don't find an answer to your question, by all means, post or become a member and post. Remember that anyone can read the forum, but to post a question, you have to be a member. Let's move on to, well, a couple other things. We've had a lot of discussion in the previous week on various aspects of the Apple Watch and whether people would be buying it, whether they thought it was a good idea or not. I'm not going to be buying right away, and it's not because of any particular problem with the Apple Watch. It's more along the lines of I'm still debating how it fits into the way I work for things. On the upside for me would be the fact that I could feel or see notifications on my wrist. Sometimes I miss text messages or something because I have my phone on vibrate. Don't necessarily feel the vibrate motor going off. I will say that was one thing about my Palm phone. The vibrate motor on that thing was like an earthquake. You knew it when it went off. I've missed a few here and there on the iPhone because of having the phone on vibrate. Nothing urgent and not often enough to convince me that I absolutely need the iWatch. But certainly, with a quick glance of the wrist, you could see whether a text or some other type of notification would be is something you need to respond to immediately. In my case, most of the texts that I receive do not need to be responded to immediately. That's a good thing. There's been some discussion on the forum specifically about that as it applies to driving and the possibility that as we acquire more devices, particularly more wearables, people will become more and more distracted. Any of you who drive regularly know that I'm sure you've seen on numerous occasions people driving down the road paying more attention to their phone than they are to the road. And the hands-free devices and systems, I'm not necessarily sure that they solve the problem. All they do is convince some people that they're not being distracted. And I can tell you, although I don't drive, I would have a difficult time driving and carrying on a cell phone conversation, even with a hands-free system. I've noticed in the last few years that I seem to, when I have a conversation with someone, I have to focus on that conversation, not on whatever else is going on in the background. So that's something to think about. There have been a number of other things that have come up about the Apple Watch. And I was hanging around the Cult of Mac earlier today on their website, and they had some interesting comments relative to the Apple Watch. Rob Lefevre, who has written in a number of, my apologies if I mispronounce his name, has written in a number of publications, and he has a piece out on the Apple Watch at the moment, discussing his impressions of the Apple Watch after using it for a while. And a few of the things that he takes away from it as positives, there were a number of them, including a couple that I think that are interesting to me. I don't know how interesting they would be to someone else. So they kind of caught my attention. One of them is not something that I expected to catch my attention, and it has to do with well, just here are a couple that he mentions. First of all, increased battery life on his iPhone. And I was curious about this, so I read it. How in the world did the purchase of the Apple Watch and the integration with the Apple Watch integrate with his iPhone and increase the battery life on his phone? Well, essentially, if I remember the story correctly, what's happening is he's looking less at the iPhone screen, therefore less times needing to activate the screen, and it's allowing his battery to hold up a little bit longer. He also liked the ability to control music, to play music without having to reach into his pocket and grab the iPhone. If you're using something like Spotify or anything like that, being able to tap an icon on the watch will give you and get control of your music and play, rewind, pause, etc., without having to reach in the pocket, grab the iPhone. I don't have much of an opportunity to play music during the day, but I must admit that if I did, this would be something that I would like. Couple of other things. Many people now are using selfie sticks, taking pictures with their iPhones, etc., etc., etc. And one of the things that you have to do when you're using the iPhone as your camera, if you want to be in the shot, you've got to have a way of triggering the shutter. But you could use the Apple Watch to do this. And right now, the post that I saw about this works with the iPhone, basically using the watch as the shutter trigger for the phone camera. But theoretically, this should be possible with other cameras as more and more applications become available. It should be possible to trigger a camera. Let's say you've got your camera on a tripod. That camera may or may not have a remote triggering function. You could use the Apple Watch, not have to use your iPhone or carry around another device for a camera. And one of the ones that Rod mentioned This was also in his article. In terms of using Siri, making use of Siri on the iPhone, working in conjunction with the watch. And that is, he used the watch to set, he had to deliver a package, take a package to the post office. He set a Siri reminder using the watch. And when he got in the vicinity of the post office, Siri reminded him to stop and drop off the package. Now, could he have done the same thing with his iPhone, using only his iPhone and taken the watch out of the equation? Yes, we've all done it. But there are times when being able to do it from watch and not having to pull out the iPhone or the iPad is a convenient thing. Is that enough to convince people to buy the watch? Maybe, maybe not. I'll admit it has a certain cool factor. It's got that whole Dick Tracy communicator watch thing going in ways that the iPhone doesn't, although smartphones are coming closer to that. But for some people, being able to do things like that are going to be the tipping point in buying the Apple Watch, especially as more and more applications become available. I did see a post online that if you're expecting to find a watch application that does fart noises, you're not going to find it. I did see a post online that claims that Apple has said they will not have an app that allows fart noises on the watch. Bart Simpson will be hideously disappointed. Practical jokers everywhere are grinding their teeth and wailing their hands about in the air. And but those are some of the things that came up as I was doing some things about the watch, taking a look at some of what's been written. I know there's been some points about some people claiming to have cracked it because of dropping it. That's not been a huge number of posts so far based on what I've seen, although I haven't done an extensive study of this. But I will tell you, there are a lot of watches in the same price range as the Apple Watch that if you drop them or bang them hard against something, they're going to break. I know. I've done it. Okay? So to me, that will only become an issue if it proves less durable than comparably priced watches. And I think, that's just my take on that. As I say, I've seen other watches in a similar price range that don't take the kind of drop that some people have done. I think I saw one where somebody claimed to have dropped the watch from about 3 feet in the air. Okay, granted, that has happened before. I've done it before. Some watches survive, some don't. As I say, it's not an issue of will the Apple Watch survive. It's more an issue of, is it more or less prone to damage than a comparably priced timepiece that isn't a smartwatch? In other words, if I'm going to spend $300-400 on a watch, that's not a smartwatch, and I drop it, if it survives consistently, but the Apple Watch doesn't, that would be an issue. As long as they behave comparably, then I don't think it's much of an issue. That kind of wraps up the Apple Watch roundup for the week. I'll have more tidbits and pieces here and there with the Apple Watch. It's hard for me to test some of the tips as I don't own one at the moment. But it's always interesting to see some of the initial reactions. One thing I do want to mention, there are some users who are reporting, and we'll see if this sticks as an issue, that that users who have tattoos are having a little bit of a problem with the watch. And specifically, the problem seems to be that if you have a tattoo on your wrist, right where the watch would normally sit, something about that procedure, that process, because the inks and the way they absorb things are affecting notifications. It'll be interesting to see if this proves true or if there's something else going on there. I haven't read a lot about that one yet. There are all kinds of things. There is someone, there's a video that you can see around. The problem is somewhat affectionately being referred to as Tattoo Gate. And there's a possibility, the suggestion is that the problem may be with the metallic pigments in some tattoo inks. Although nobody knows quite for sure exactly what's causing this, whether this is an isolated phenomenon or regular thing. So tattoo users may want to take steps such as wearing a sleeve for a while or something like that. And this is something that, once again, this is going to be one of those little quirks and kinks to be worked out as we go along. Another thing that's come up in the forum this week, backing up, various aspects of backing up software remain a hot issue, as does the Photos app that was included recently with the release of Yosemite 10.10.3. Some users are reporting what happens essentially when you install Photos is some users are finding that they can't run iPhoto anymore. And in some ways, for various reasons, they prefer iPhoto. A couple of things are true. First of all, the installation of Photos does not delete iPhoto. It's still in your applications folder. What some users are reporting is that when you go to run iPhoto, you see a no symbol. We discussed this last week. A no symbol that says you can't run it. And people are having trouble updating because when they go to the App Store, it doesn't show available as an update. So here's the thing that you want to be sure to do. Before you go into the App Store, if you're having this problem with iPhoto, and we mentioned this last week, and I didn't get the links posted from last week's show, my apologies for that. I'll try to get those up both ways tonight or early in the morning, or sometime tomorrow rather. It's been a kind of busy day, but here's the thing. If you see that symbol where iPhoto is showing with the no symbol through it, one way to get that fixed, several users have reported this as a fix. I've seen this on the Apple discussion forum as well as both in Mac forum. If you go into your hard drive and delete the iPhoto application, do not delete your library, okay? Do not delete your iPhoto library. Just delete the application, all right? Now, log into the App Store using your account and go to the Updates tab. iPhoto will usually show there, and you can re-download it. I believe the current edition is 9.8.1. That version works. It's either 9.6.1 or 9.8.1. That version not only works with 10.10.3, but also works alongside of the Photos app. So you're not locked out of using it. That's something that you want to be aware of. I think that particularly as Photos matures, it's going to have the same capabilities that we used to see in iPhoto. Some people are saying they don't see the same capability. I haven't used it enough yet to fully get a handle on what it can do. I can tell you that what I've seen so far, I like of it. It's a little different from what a lot of people are used to, but if you've used several of the iPhoto applications or some of the other third-party Mac photo editing applications. They are better, they're set up a little bit similar to Photos. I think it's going to turn out to be a nice program. I won't know until I've had a chance to play with it a little while. So that's another one to keep in mind as you're doing an upgrade. That's yet another thing to pay attention to. And one other comment about upgrade before we leave that and just move on to general things. For the last several operating systems, Apple has listed 2 GB as the minimum excuse me, amount of memory for that version of the OS. Now, in the past, Apple has been rather stringent about their, for lack of a better word, about their memory requirements. In other words, if they told you that you needed 2 GB rather, it probably meant that it would run on a little bit less if you got it installed, but that to run well, you needed at least 2 GB. With the last couple of operating systems, I believe 2 GB has been listed as the minimum, and it will run on 2 GB. But most of our members, particularly when it comes to Yosemite, most of our members feel that 2 GB really is absolutely their minimum, and if you want it running well, you need more than that. I certainly, personally, would not run Yosemite with less than 4 GB for what I do with it. I think 4 is the absolute minimum for reasonable performance. 8, if your system can handle it, is good. For some people, they're finding 16 better, depending upon what you do. Don't expect a modern machine that only has 2 GB to run any OS without beach balling a little bit. We ask computers to do so many things now and to do so many things simultaneously that 2 GB I don't think is a good floor anymore for memory. 4 certainly is better, and for many users, 8 would be a better deal. One way that you can find out what you might need is go into your system specs, find out how much memory you have, go into About This Mac, find out how much memory you have, restart your machine so it clears out everything that's in memory, and run it. Go through your routine, do your normal tasks. And when you start to see the system slow down, go to the Activity Monitor application in your Utilities folder, look at the Memory Use tab, and look at the number of page ins and page outs. If you're seeing a lot of page outs, then maybe it's time to add new memory. If you're maxed on what your machine can take, memory-wise, then you're going to have to look at how can I modify my workflow? How can I run fewer apps at the same time, or something of this nature, because that's going to be the indication. Memory for the sake of memory doesn't necessarily improve your speed. What you've got to know is how much of that memory is being used. If all you're doing is web surfing, the occasional YouTube video, and maybe a session in Safari and some emailing, if that's all you do in the run of the day with your computer, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but if that's what the bulk of your computer activities are, and you've got, say, 6 GB, 8 GB in your machine, bumping it up to 16 GB is not going to make that big a difference in all probability, because your Mac is not using all of the memory that it has. Hence the suggestion of going into activity monitoring, looking at memory usage. If you're confused by those stats, post in the forum, and some of our more knowledgeable Mac gurus, of which there are many, will try to answer your question and give you some guidance in that area. If, on the other hand, you were to take that same machine and use it for video editing, photo editing, things of that nature, then going to more memory, going, say, from 4 to 8 or from 8 to 16, something like that, increasing the memory might help considerably. It's something that we need to take a look at, based not on conjecture and what other people think will help, but based on what your system needs and how you are using the system. That's because everybody's computer usage is different. So just because somebody says, hey, you need 16 gigabyte, you need this, you need that, maybe not. That may not be what's bogging down your system. There are a number of other things. I'm thinking about doing a show in the very near future on things that can be bogging down your system. Just a sort of a general check. A couple of our members have links in their signatures about things that can cause your Mac to beach ball. Probably going to talk about that in the near future. Maybe not next week, but perhaps the following week. So they'll look for that on the slate of things to come up. And looks like that's going to just about do it for the tips and tricks this week. And the forum roundup, I hope you enjoyed it. A little bit shorter show than usual. Didn't try to jam as much stuff in this week as I sometimes do. Didn't get in as much research quite this week as I had anticipated. Hope that you found the information helpful. We'll have the links up shortly, certainly by tomorrow. I know I forgot the ones from last week. I'll try to have both of those posted by about this time tomorrow evening. They might be up before that. I'll put a note up in the forum in the Sunday chat thread when those become available, so keep an eye out there for that. I hope that you have enjoyed this Sunday chat, and that you'll join us again next week. I hope you found a lot of the information useful, and I've certainly enjoyed bringing this information to you. Until next week, this is your host for the Mac Forum Sunday Chat, Sylvester Rock, aka Sly Dude. I'll see you in the forum, and hopefully you won't ask a question that's so difficult that I can't answer. But if you do, I'm sure that somebody else will jump to my aid and bring us the correct information. Until next week, I hope you've enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you on the what next week will be the Mother's Day edition of the Mac Forum video chat. See you next week.